Programs Coordinator here at the Kellogg Hubbard Library. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm really excited today to introduce Debbie Clark, Master Gardener, who takes care of our Master Garden here at the Kellogg Hubbard Library.
Thank you. Okay, well, welcome. Debbie Clark, and I live in Calais. I've been working on these gardens for about 12 years. And I want to thank Nikki Welly for inviting me here in this beautiful space, our beloved library. And I want to thank Orca Media for being here and recording. I know we'd all rather be outside, so I've got a window open, and you can at least see the tulips that I planted last fall, and see some of those flowers. I also want to thank Jason Cass. He's the facilities coordinator here, and I have to work with him about, mulch deliveries and workshops and work dates. He's been terrific. And I want to thank Kate Townsend. I don't know if anybody knows Kate Townsend. She's this petite woman with a big straw hat. And you'll see her many more hours than me, working to keep the grounds beautiful. Now she does like the landscaping up front, both sides, and on the side here. And every once in a while, she does dip into my gardens, and that's okay. I really appreciate her. She's not doing it for any, volunteer credit or anything for any program. It's just for her sheer love of gardening, and I just really appreciate her. So, and thanks to all of you for coming out on this beautiful night. So, my first 2 years working here were as an intern with a Master Gardener program. And then the last, 12, I've been a certified Master Gardener. So the UVM Extension Master Gardener program began in 1991 as a community education volunteer program. It's where volunteers receive training from university faculty and industry professionals. And there are more than 40 of these across the country. And it's a 16-week course online. And it covers everything from home gardening fundamentals, basic botany, soil fertility, insects and pests and diseases, pollinator plants, and much more. So after completing the 16-week coursework, you have to pass the exam. And then you have an entire year to work and log 40 hours towards your certification. Now, the UVM Extension program also has a Master Composter program. And I've got handouts here for both the Master Composter and Master Gardener program. So, let's see. For a project to be approved by the head people at UVM, it has to meet certain criteria. It has to be horticultural in nature. It's got to be supportive of the Master Gardener program. It has to have educational components, and it has to be all volunteer involvement. So that means no paid professionals, no paid staff. It's people working and learning as students. So in 2001, the library director here was Hillary Farrington, and she worked with UVM to form this partnership. Now, when I talk about the gardens, it's this perennial garden right out here, okay? And this planter is sort of our baby too. So, and Jane Davies was also instrumental in setting up the partnership. And so this was in 2001. So from the notes, this is a notebook that the ladies have kept since 2001. And it has some old photos, and it has all kinds of things. And it does have a list of all the people who have worked on this garden, and I just wanted to give a shout out to them. Erica Garfin, Marianne Johnson, Darlene Clark, Judith Hebert, Jane Lindway, Lori and Michael Curtis, Georgia Valentine, Thea Schwartz, Frances Binder, Lauren Starr, Gail Poitras, Mary Jane Olson, Christine Barnes, Kitty Werner, and Deb Curtis. And apologies if I've omitted anybody who's worked here. So, okay, so approved projects. We are very fortunate in central Vermont to have 3 of these approved projects, this library being one. And the North Branch Nature Center on Route 12, you all know about the North Branch. That is a fabulous place, not only for trails and for educational, but there's an orchard out there, and there's a bird garden, and there's a big native perennial garden that I have worked on. And the leader of that project is Gail Poitras, and she's doing a wonderful job. Before her, it was Sandy Parr for many years. And the third approved project is at the State House. Now, has anybody ever been behind the State House? It's called the Aiken Garden in honor of Senator Aiken. And it's a hidden gem, and if you get a chance to see it, you should. Now, the reason you don't see any signs or have read anything about it is because that walkway is the emergency exit for the State House and the legislature, and they can't have a lot of people milling about in case of an emergency. But I'll tell you how to get there. So as you're facing the State House, it's on your left, and you have to go through a couple of parking lots, and then you'll see an iron railing going up a slope. Well, you can just walk up that path, and you come to the building, you go around the building, and there it is. So it used to be a tangled mess of invasive plants, and a couple of master gardeners noticed that it really needed some love. Jean Vissering, Lauren Starr were instrumental in starting that, and to this day it's still a approved project. What's nice about that is it's all native and it's shady, and it's a steep bank. So you have to have certain plants, to help hold the soil in there, and you still want to attract pollinators. There's a seasonal stream coming down. There are pavers, so it's a nice little place to walk. That means you have to kind of turn around, and it's not a through walkway. You come back the same way you came in. There's a beautiful sculpture by a local mathematician, and there's a huge magnolia that's just finishing up blossoming right now. What's a real treat is if you're in the cafeteria in the State House having lunch, you will see through the big plate glass windows. That's where you really enjoy it. Yeah. And that was the whole thing that those ladies had in mind. So try to get there if you can. So let's see. Oh, there is a recent project in Waterbury, the community gardens on Main Street. And the leader of that project is Rachel Babin. She's a pretty new certified master gardener, has a lot of energy, and she's been doing some wonderful work with raised beds and community with kids. And I don't have the address for that. It's probably on the website though. And when we're done, I have lots of materials that you can take and help yourself too. So, all right, so what do we have in this garden? Well, along the back wall, you want the tallest things. So we've got monkshood, which people know. It has a beautiful purple flower. It gets about 6 feet tall. And late summer, early fall is when that flowers. And we have the climbing hydrangeas in the corner. It's not real tall, but I mean, it does climb tall. And right now it's reaching up to the corner of the building, and it's got one arm horizontal along just underneath the windowsills, and it looks nice and healthy. There was a time when it didn't look so great, so we had to prune and give it some extra love. And all I did this year was just prune off the dead blossoms, and it seems pretty good. It's really hard there's no way to really support it because it's climbing on stone. So you can't put a nail in or anything, and it just has to hug the stone with its little tiny feet. And if it's flopping around, you can tuck in one of the branches to give it some support. But other than that, it's kind of on its own. It's a very cool plant. So along the back is Thalictrum, also known as meadow rue. It is in the buttercup family. And that is a really beautiful native perennial. It has a slender stalk that reaches up about 6 feet tall. And the leaves are fragile, and it's got these pink blossoms. that the pollinators love. That has to be staked, so it doesn't flop over in the wind. Also in the back is the Baptisia, or blue false indigo. That, as you know, it fans way out and gets really lush and has those beautiful purple blossoms. Hunger Mountain Co-op has a couple along their walkway, and that's just a beautiful plant. So the problem child in the back is the helianthus, which is a perennial sunflower. And it's called Lemon Queen, and it is beautiful. It's got the shape of a sunflower. It's not so big, but it's yellow. It's very cheery. It gets 6 to 7 feet high, but it has a vigorous lateral taproot. And so that's what we're working on right now, is trying to reduce it by half, because it's just coming forward. It just wants to take over. And it's not invasive, it's just a vigorous spreader. So watch out if you plant that in your garden. Let's see, so, all right, so the middle section of the garden, we have peonies and echinacea, the purple coneflower. I have a backstory on the peony. So in the middle of that garden is like, it's the nicest peony of all. It's right in the center. And it's called Festiva Maxima, and it's white, and it is so sweet smelling. When I was an intern, one of my projects was the ladies here decided, okay, we're gonna move that. We're gonna dig her up. I'm like, okay, why? Well, she wasn't flowering so well. It had been there for a long time. I don't know how long. Could be 100 years. Who knows? So we got our shovels and we dug and dug. And at that time, the peony was against that wall. So after a couple of hours of digging, we got this massive amount of tuber, and it was all attached. I mean, this was underneath the soil. This was the peony. And I just thought, oh my God, this thing is disgusting. So we rolled it onto a tarp, and then we're like, now what? Well, you have to look for the eyes. You want to look for the healthy parts, look for the eyes, and at least 2 or 3 is what you're looking for. And then you take your saw or your hatchet or whatever you have, and you want to cut away enough tuber so that you've got some to plant with the eyes showing up or facing up, and then that's what you plant. And that is the granddaughter of that hunk of mess from 12 years ago. And I've just finished staking it. And so in a couple of weeks, it's going to be blossoming. So if you get a chance to come by and smell it, it's awesome. So I was the lucky winner to take that hunk of tuber home. I even took a picture of it because it was just amazing how giant this thing was. And I wish I could show you the picture, but unfortunately the phone I had that is at the bottom of right through was a reservoir. It was paddling, like an eagle, then there goes the phone with all these great pictures. But anyway, so I did take it home and I worked at it and learned about peonies, and I ended up potting up some peonies to sell at plant sales for the Master Gardening Program. And I have a couple around my property, and then I've shared some with my daughters. And that's my peony story. Oh, so as far as staking peonies, we were down at Kildene in Manchester. Have you ever been down to Kildene? And on the peonies, they have a certain way to stake their peonies. I don't know what it's called, but usually the peony support baskets you buy at the stores are really inadequate. I mean, this one out here gets 4.5, 5 feet high. And if you have a peony support halfway down, it's not going to do the job. When these blossoms are huge and capturing the rainwater, they'll just break. So you take these slender bamboo, 6 or 7 bamboo poles, about this high, and you place them around the plant. Make sure they're in the ground securely. And you take your twine and you tie it to one of the poles. It's best if you have 2 people doing this, and then you sort of thread the twine to the opposite pole and then back, and sort of not a spider web, but sort of a star shape. And that will hold those blossoms in place when it's wet and it's raining. So It doesn't look terrific now.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it doesn't look terrific now because you can see, but I mean, eventually, hopefully you want to hide that. But that's how Hildine does all of their peonies. It's amazing. So the other two peonies in that garden, one is the dark red, that is Francois Ortega. It's not as vigorous, so I just used a regular tall peony basket to support that. And then there's the third one that's pink, less vigorous, and I don't know the name of that one. But I mean, it's still beautiful, right? I mean, peonies are just amazing. So in the mid area also there's daylilies and there's garden phlox. And let's see, sedum, which is an autumn joy. Allium, which is nice and tall. Let's see, and those dianthus, asters. And the dianthus pinks, those are actually towards the front because that's kind of a creeping sort of a plant. Cranesbill or a bloody geranium, that's starting to flower now. And we do have daffodils and crocus from the early spring. You probably saw those blossoming. I think that was on the front page of the paper a couple weeks ago. Jeb caught a picture of that.
What does a bloody geranium do?
Well, I actually have one over here to give away. It's a low plant. It has a really pretty pink flower. This doesn't look so good because I just transplanted it yesterday when I was here working. But it's low. It has this kind of feathery sort of a leaf. And it does stay sort of low. It does spread, but you can just dig it up easily. So yeah, it's a nice plant.
And it's a light pink or a deep pink?
It's sort of a deep pink.
Oh, that sounds sweet.
Yeah. So what else here? Oh yeah, the daffodils and the crocuses. Yeah. Oh, so this granite planter here, different story. I mean, this is like its own microclimate. It's so hot here because of all the heat absorbed from the sun and all that stone. So we have to water this. Versus we don't have to water the perimeter, so it takes care of itself. With the diversity of plants and the native species, they can go with, and we also mulch, and they can go without being watered. But here I'll plant some annuals. I put pansies in, and I had some kids help me plant nasturtiums out front. I'll take these tulips out here and dry them, and save them for next year. Yeah, it's nice to have some colors up here. Yeah. But it gets hot. They just bake there. So, all right, so what do we do in the garden besides weed? So, for spring cleanup, I was traveling, so I wasn't here, and Kate did the spring cleanup for me, which is very sweet of her. But it's not how I would have done it, but that's okay. I really appreciated her work. So we came in and we used the edging tool to define the edges and clean up them, make it nice and professional. And we spread some mulch and removed any dead and diseased branches, twigs, or petals. And yeah, I haven't fed or amended the soil yet since I've sort of taken over the project. I feel like it doesn't really need it. It's got some good plant material that we put back in the soil, meaning like we don't remove a stem, we break it up and then we place it back down. So so in the summer there's less to do, but the heavy having a drought doesn't really affect the perennial garden, but it will. We have to water this more often. Last couple of years when we've had the floods, that perennial garden fared really well. I came to assess the damage and there was hardly any damage. I wish I could say that it prevented the basement from being flooded, but it didn't. But you could see where the water level was on the stems. It was brown and muddy, but when the water receded, the plants were just I couldn't believe it. People were reporting all kinds of damage. But I really think the diversity of plants, just helps. Yeah, the granite planter needs watering. Okay, so in the fall, we do cleanup. And we've been taught that you don't cut a plant down to the ground. You want to leave about 10 or 12 inches of a stem. And why is that? Is because if that stem is hollow, it's the perfect place for a beneficial insect to winter over. And I have some examples of this. I'll pass these around. Some of these are from my garden and some are from here. So here is the sedum. You see so I leave all my plants, like all of the dried stuff on top, and then in the spring I remove them. So if you take a look inside here, you'll see it's hollow. And it is just a perfect place for a beneficial insect to hang out in there and overwinter. And then, do its thing. I mean, these plants have co-evolved with the insects, for years. And so instead of removing them, we want to keep them, where they're supposed to be. That's flat cohosh, that's in my garden. Here's a, now the echinacea, of course, doesn't have a lot of room in there, but what it does have is has a flower that could be food for the birds. Phlox, what's this, a monkshood? Yeah, the monkshood is a great one. That's got all kinds of room in there.
Wow.
This is the phlox. Not much room in there. The bee balm, that's from my garden. This is a pretty slender. Not only does this have seeds on the top for birds, but it's got room for insects. And this is hollyhock, not much room in there, but you've got seeds that will feed the birds. So in the fall, when you're looking at your garden, don't be neat and tidy. Mother Nature's messy. They teach us, don't take everything away. It's okay to be messy.
Do you stake these?
Is that the hollyhock? Do I say, I don't stake my hollyhocks. Yeah, you can if you have the fall.
If you don't need to, I mean, I'll.
Yeah, but the seeds are great. I mean, just leave them because, they'll feed the birds. And actually leaving these stalks, and then when it's snowing and the snow falls on these, it just adds, I can take those for you so you don't get stuck with them. You want the bouquet? You want the bouquet?
Makes a nice bulb.
Yeah, right. But, when the snow falls on them, it adds winter interest.
What about peonies? Do you cut those back?
Peonies, yeah, peonies we do cut down, yeah. And you can cut those right to the ground, yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to think if I do remove the stems or keep them there. If they're dried and looking healthy, not just like moldy or not diseased, I'll just put them back right around that. Because with these, you could just stand there, it takes a long time, but then you just drop these right around the plant. In case there's a little critter in there that hasn't finished its life cycle, it won't be far from the plant. So, and this is a nice seed head. I think this was the echinacea, but a nice seed head for birds. So yeah, they say don't worry about being neat and tidy. And of course, here in a public place, a lot of the beds are neat and tidy. They look beautiful. And if you're going by sometime and see this perennial garden, it won't be. So don't, we're not neglecting it. It's an intentional mess. Although we do try to keep the edges neat and whatnot. So. All right, so yeah, so anytime you see a diseased or a dead branch or anything that doesn't look healthy, you can clip that, remove it. If it looks like it might have mold or disease, don't put it back in the garden. Toss it in the trash, not even in your compost in case it's something that's not good, something that's going to grow and take over. Okay, yeah, then we weed some more. All right, so the fall, let's see, winter we don't really have to do anything except for dream for summer.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Catalogs.
Yeah. So Yeah, I have this notebook for anybody who wants to look at it. Like I said, I've got the kind of before and after pictures. And we do try, there are some things that have disappeared. Like there's supposed to be a clematis underneath that structure. It's kind of a triangular structure. And it's kind of rickety, it needs to be replaced, but it's covering the wellhead. And we cannot find the clematis, so I think I'm just gonna put some scarlet runner beans around it and let it climb up there and let it go wild. I forgot to mention two things. There's a climbing honeysuckle on sort of a rickety lattice out there, but that has that beautiful orange, these orange blossoms the hummingbirds like. And I forgot to mention there's a lilac in there. Now it's a Miss Kim lilac, and it's a very well-behaved plant. It's only about like my height, and it doesn't really get any bigger than that. So you don't have to worry about it getting 8 feet tall, 8 feet wide. All you have to do is just, prune it. And they'll actually prune after the lilac flowers. Even though we think, oh, I'm not supposed to prune when it's warm. Well, it's like the only thing you're supposed to prune after it flowers. Everything else, you need blueberries, or you prune those in the wintertime. But lilacs, prune those after they flower. And so I'll be doing that with this Miss Kim. But that's a really nice sort of compact lilac. So, and speaking of lilacs, there's an excellent handout here for for home maintenance, for pruning your own and taking care of your own. And I just learned something a couple weeks ago that if you want to leave 9 to 12 canes of your lilac bush, some old canes and some new canes, and you can prune a tree about 30% at a time and not stress the tree out too much. And then if there's more to do, wait till the next year. But about 30% is a good rule of thumb to follow. And there's all kinds of handouts on compost and care of perennials, winter injury, jumping worms, as a way, 10 easy steps to prevent common garden diseases, ticks. We all get intimate with ticks, unfortunately. There's soil sample materials, and there's the UVM Extension Master Gardener Program has a hotline. You can call this number with any gardening question, and someone will get back to you, I think within a couple of days, if not sooner. So the number is on here. You can take a sticker. It's on. And yeah, so does anybody have any questions on any of the material that I talked about?
You talked about invasive plants. What is your feeling about when people recommend using glyphosate on invasive plants?
Oh, that's a no-no, yeah.
I thought that.
We don't use any chemicals at all. IPM is the integrative pest management, and we really stress going with planting a companion planting, like a nasturtium planted next to a squash plant will help repel the pest that's going to bother that plant. We don't recommend any chemicals at all. I mean, yeah, and unfortunately they're out there. I like to save seeds, and so I've got a whole tray of seeds to share with you. And seed saving is a really fun thing to do with like the grandkids. They can count and put the seeds in little bags and whatnot. But that's sort of my pushback to Monsanto. Chemicals are.
So I've given up on squash because the squash bugs were so bad. And I was getting like maybe 3 squashes out of a huge bed.
Oh,
and
really?
it was just rotting.
Do you put putting nasturtiums in there?
Nasturtiums were crawling all
Oh,
over.
really?
And
Really?
marigolds everywhere.
Oh, chickens?
And that would be good, but we got rid of those.
Yeah.
So I've just decided this year not to plant any squash. And then, do you know how long it takes because the squash bugs like eggs.
Right,
in the
so do
soil.
you rotate,
Yeah.
like, rotating crops is good. Wow, you're doing everything you're supposed to.
So just don't grow them anymore.
Yeah, give it a longer break, plant something else in there. Yeah, I
I
don't know.
decided to plant flowers where my
There you go,
vegetables
yeah,
were.
those squash bugs are pretty gross.
They're disgusting.
Yeah, they say just, if you find the bugs that you know are bad, just hand pick them and drop them in soapy water. Whether it's the red lily leaf beetle that attacks the stargazers, or the squash bugs, or the asparagus beetle. Yeah. Yeah.
So
just
I've inherited kind of a perennial garden here in Berlin.
This is Kathy Burns' niece.
Hi.
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 Mary. nice to
Mary.
meet you. So that garden has tulips, crocuses, all kinds of things. When they are done, daffodils, do you just leave it?
That's a good question. So the leaves of these spring flowers are still working. Like they're still collecting the energy from the sun and photosynthesizing and putting the energy into the bulb. Now I know it doesn't look very nice having all the leaves flop over, and we're leaving some in our garden. I mean, here I don't really have a lot of room, and I can't hide them in this garden here, but generally you want to leave those. But if they're brown and if they've gotten stepped on and they just look bad, you can remove them. But and some out here are still standing up nice and straight, so they're still working for you. Yeah.
Do you
So-
always dig up the bulbs?
I mean, here I am because I don't have much space for annuals, but at my present home, I just leave the tulips in. Now I talked to somebody at the State House because their display right now, it's just, I don't know how many hundreds of tulips they have. And the project leader for that Aiken garden, her husband works for BGS, so I said, get me some tulips. Because I think they dig theirs up. And I don't know if they sell them to somebody, but I said I'd like some for the library, so she's gonna help me with that. But you've got to have a nice place to dry the bulbs. Out of the sunlight with good air circulation, and then once they're dry, after a couple of weeks of drying, like on a screen or some kind of a netting, you can put them in a paper bag, or just label them so that you know where to find them when the time comes to plant them. I've had my husband throw away something in a paper bag, which was like, dahlias, no! Dahlias.
So speaking about dahlias,
Yeah.
those you do have to dig up.
Yes, yeah,
Which,
dahlias.
oh, dahlias.
Yeah.
What about those big purple alliums?
Yeah, those are great. We have some out here, but it looks like some of them got trampled. But I have one at home that's probably about 3 feet now, and it's a beautiful ball of purple.
And do you take the bulb out?
No, we leave those, yeah. The thing about the allium is the leaves start to brown when the flower's just starting, so it's nice if you can plant the allium like behind something else. Like I'm thinking, okay, next year I'm gonna have some white bleeding hearts in front of the purple allium. That should be nice, and will hide the the brownness of the leaves, and the color combination will be kind of nice. So.
So you mentioned bleeding heart.
Yeah.
Mine is starting to blossom, the little beautiful
I know.
things. And I noticed today there's little white dots on the leaves. What is that?
White dots on the leaves. Does it come off? Interesting. I don't know. Ask him. I haven't noticed that.
Yes, those are really.
Yeah, pass them around. You can just take one and put it by your phone, or whatever. Phone. People have a mobile phone now, but calendar or whatever. But yeah. Yeah, the bleeding on it. I used to have a pink, but I don't know what happened to my pink, but now I have white. I don't know how I got white, but anyway, it's a mystery.
So sweet peas, I tried that for the first time this year,
Yeah.
and they're very leggy because they've been in the house for 2 months.
Okay, so you started them indoors.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I mean, they'll acclimate eventually. Those they're climbing on some kind of trellis or chicken wire or something, and yeah, I mean, just starting and unless you have a greenhouse where they can be a little more vigorous, I know like my seedlings don't look great, and you go to Cape Farm and like, oh.
Yeah.
I'm
thinking, what have I done?
No, it's just our winter. It's yeah, we just don't have the sun. You know, if you put it in your sunniest window, you know. Yeah, sweet peas are one of my favorite, and I even saved some of the seeds. You know, if you let the pod dry on the vine, you know, in the fall, and then you can hear it rattle. You know, save those seeds, and yeah, and then label them and just know where they are, so that you can plant them again in the spring.
Are they better to be planted in the ground rather than in the?
Yeah, you know, that is a plant you can plant early. Like as soon as you can work the soil, like you like that's an early crop. So next year, instead of starting them inside, direct seed them outside, and save your indoor space for like, you know, some cucumber plants or some tomato plants or squash plants or whatever. But yeah, the pea family you can definitely put in the ground a lot sooner, with the kale and the lettuces and the spinach. Yeah. Anybody have any other questions?
I have a little question about clay soil
Mm.
and goopy, muddy,
Oh, from
puddle,
rain? Okay.
puddle-laden
So.
garden areas. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk to a guy who says he does berms and swales and all that kind of stuff. Do you know or have you heard of folks having successful
Well, some
changes
plants.
to their,
Oh, I see. You mean, so you want to amend the soil so that it's not clay. I mean, some plants like clay, but.
yeah, I've got everything that likes it is
Okay.
planted.
Okay.
You know, in
Okay.
terms of wet stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess I'd kind of like to reshape the landscape a little bit, and I don't know, I've never had anybody do a swale or berms or that kind of thing.
That's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of digging and a lot of, you know, manipulating. I mean, adding organic material, you know,
Could do it.
could really help that. And
Okay.
that's hard work too. I mean,
Yeah.
hire some neighbor, you know,
Some berm.
teenager,
Yeah.
bag, but you know, your leaves, your grass clippings, you know,
Yeah.
and then even a bag or two of some compost,
Yeah.
and eventually you'll get there, you know.
Yeah.
And if it's a problem with a wet area, maybe a rain garden is for you, or maybe it's
Yeah.
just.
I've planted some willows and some apple trees, you know, crab apples and stuff to drink up stuff.
Right.
We'll see.
Right, yeah.
I want it to
Those are the right
fix
things.
by tomorrow.
Right, oh, I know.
Yeah.
We all want things that look good now, yeah.
Yeah.
I've done some volunteering at the Kellogg farm in Berlin. He's fantastic, and he goes through UVM, but he took over, the neighbors said, okay, you can have my yard, because he's made an incredible vegetable garden out of a tiny
Is this
yard.
up at where is this up at the?
My friend lives in
Oh, okay.
Highland Avenue.
Oh, okay,
It's amazing.
okay.
And it was all clay. So he makes these huge, wide rows of, I don't know if you call it it's a raised bed, but there's
So they
no
kind of
wood.
domed up, they domed up,
Yeah,
okay.
so it's like
yeah.
a little hill.
Yes,
With-
and he's covered, you know, we did all the shoveling of this compost, tons of compost on top of it. And he says eventually it will change the soil, but
Right.
it's
So he just layers,
layers.
just layers,
And he
yeah.
doesn't ever, he broad forks it in the spring,
Mhm.
where he just puts this huge thing that he actually made, and he just goes in and lifts it a little bit,
Mhm.
lifts it, and then puts on organic fertilizer, and then we just pop in plants.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not, you know, it's vegetables in rows, it's
Yeah.
not like a flower garden for
Yeah.
me, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, adding, you know, adding layers of organic material
Yeah.
and just, yeah.
And I read somewhere that good rooted things like daikon radish can go in deep and kind of loosen things so the minerals will rise and you can actually put something in. But it's so messy.
Yeah.
There isn't a set of shoes, you know, like boots that are encrusted, so
Oh.
it's a nice brown color on everything.
But isn't it fun to dig in the dirt?
Oh.
It's fun to that.
It's heaven.
Yeah.
It's really heaven.
And finally we can get out there, yeah. So, so I have some plants to give away too. I was here working yesterday, and so I have 3 monk's hood plants. I have that one, the little bloody geranium. If you want it, you can have it. And then I have some echinacea, the purple coneflower, if you And I have baby aloes, I forgot. I've got baby aloe plants. You know, aloe plants, you should have one in your kitchen, everybody should have one in their kitchen.
Yes, yes.
And then I've got seeds to share, and then help yourself to any of these handouts. Yeah, so it is in a compost, there's a compost,
Well, thank you.
Thank you.